to share out my screen here. Close my email and a few other things here. All right. I think I got most of that closed out now. Too many things open. All right. Okay, so this credit card example here, let's take a look at this. So we've got the UML here for this credit card. The piece that we'll want to have here an understanding of is that we want to remember how to do the translation from a UML all the way over to the actual code that we have available. So make sure you understand how to translate from this UML diagram. And this would be a great question on the final, is to show you a UML diagram and have you write out some of the pieces or the method signatures or the method headers, or what are the attributes of this, what are the private attributes, what are the public attributes, what are some constants within the class, that type of thing. Make sure you understand how to delineate those and how to come up with those. So this one here, we're looking at this credit card. It has these two constants here. These are public because we see the plus sign here, and they're static because we see the underline on them. Public, static. This is a double of 0.2999, a 30% APR, annual percentage rate. So that's a horrible annual percentage rate. You probably don't want to look at a credit card unless it's 12% or below. That's just financial advice for you. Look out for yourself in the future. And also never get cards unless they are something that offers you some kind of reward points or reward things. Pro tip for the day. So with this credit card, we've got a card number here that's a string. Then we've got an owner. Again, these owners, we've got this one-to-many relationship here. One owner can have many cards. So that's what that relationship describes. Hopefully you're now understanding that a little bit better. We looked at this example a little bit in the past, but I wanted to go over this a little bit more today because at this point it should be very familiar with you, and hopefully you should be able to figure out some of these pieces and how you're doing some of these items as far as the constructor and the equals classes. And also I wanted to record this for posterity's sake in a video. So let's take a look at these. I've already downloaded these. You can right click download link file as if you want to follow along at home. So let's go ahead and bring this up. I've got this out here. Let's go ahead and grab the owner first. Let's look at that because it's going to be a simpler one. It won't be as difficult to look at. All right. So if we look at this one and look at the code for this, look at these side by side as much as possible. All right, so we've got this owner class here. This owner class has a private int value for the owner number, which is just like a identification number for the bank. This is the bank's management system for their financial management and their account management system. So they'd have an owner number here. Then we'll have a string for the name. Then we'll have a string for the social security number. So we definitely want to make sure that's a private attribute, that we aren't allowing that to be publicly available to other classes and to have other people view that without coming into this class or manipulating it outside of the class. So that's why we definitely want to make sure, even if these others were public, that this SSN would be private because of the fact that it is uniquely identifiable information, or UII, as they refer to in a lot of security terms. So that's something we want to protect and make sure that this is personal, confidential information. So our default constructor. So this is, again, when we create a default constructor, we're not passing it any parameters. So that's one of the attributes that you're going to notice for these default constructors. You're not passing it any parameters or arguments in here. And so it's going to just build something with a basic 0 or default kind of values down here. So if you pass it nothing and you're creating an owner, this owner is going to get owner number 0, Their name will be none, and then they're going to have all zeros SSN here. And this is a even more fictitious because it would be 4 zeros, 2 zeros, or 3 zeros, 2 zeros, and 4 zeros. And we're just putting in some garbage here so we don't get it confused with an actual SSN. So we've got this idea of this owner constructor here too, this secondary constructor. So we've got this extra constructor here. This one's going to be passing it an owner number, a name, and an SSN. So these are explicit. This is the explicit constructor. That's another name for this, is the explicit constructor instead of the default constructor. And we're passing it some parameters here. And we're passing in the owner number, and we're going to set this .owner number equal to owner number. And remember, whenever we use the word this, we're referring to the particular object that we just are manipulating. So this owner number equals this owner number that we're getting passed in. This name equals the name that we're getting passed in. This SSN we're getting passed in as a parameter. So make sure you understand why we're using this. Sometimes I think as beginning students, you want to overuse the word this, and everything from here on out becomes this. Make sure you don't do that, because that is not correct always. But in a lot of instances, when you start working with object-oriented, it will be this, the object that you're working with, this owner number, this particular, if you're trying to get to the attribute or an attribute of this particular object, it's this dot that, versus that dot owner number or other dot owner number if you had two things you were comparing for, like a dot equals method. So we've got this get name. It's just a standard getter here. We're just returning owner dot name. And this is going to return actually from an object. So this one is actually creating one from a, this would actually have to be public static so that it could work properly here to get the owner number. Or we'd have to change this over here, and we just say nothing in here, and we'd go this dot name, and we'd return this dot name. So that's probably a better way to create this method versus getting the owner number for another owner object. And that would be a static reference to it, because we'd be getting name for, and we'd be passing it the owner. So that would be one way. This is probably the better getter for a object, to make this a non-static, where we're working with an object, so we don't need the static. Static means that you'd be calling this just from a command line, and you'd be going get name, not my owner dot get name or owner one dot get name. That's how you would call this now, because it's a non-static reference to it. Make sure you understand that, the static, non-static. Static requires you to not have an object. Non-static means you need to have an object that you're working with. So we've got get owner number here, and this is the example here, this dot owner number, or this dot owner number will get returned. So that's going to get that owner number, the owner name, this dot name, and then over here, this dot SSN. So these are the different ways you could set that up. Again, that one we could have done as a non-static, a static one, where we were just returning this for the owner, or we could have done it that way where we pass the owner in there. But these are the more standard ways to do that. Let's do that, and then let us grab the next one that is open there. I'm going to grab my credit card. Okay, and let's see if we've got this one here. We have this written where we've got this dot owner number equals card dot owner number. Yes, okay. All right. So we've got these pieces here. So let's go ahead and look at this credit card class. Over here, we've got our two constants here, the APR and the credit limit, public static final, double, and then we've got the uppercase nomenclature with the underscores in it for the constant here. Then we've got these attributes we've got the private string card number, we've got the private int owner number, private double balance here, and private int security pin. We've got a default constructor that we're going to create with owner card number, all four nines in all 4 digits for the 4 pairs. And then we've got an owner number of 999, the balance of 0, and security pin of 123. So then we've got over here an explicit constructor where we're creating a card where we're passing just 2 of the attributes, a card number and an owner number, because we don't want a balance on there. So we default of a 0 balance, and that makes sense because you would start a card out with a 0 balance of a due, that is, not a credit limit, but a 0 balance. And then we'd have a security pin over here. The other thing we might want to track is that credit limit. So this might be a flawed class. You're going to find that there are several different types of classes and ways to implement classes. So not every implementation of a class will be the same. They don't have to be necessarily. Sometimes you want to do particular things with a class and other times you don't. For the dice class that we used for the example with our Yahtzee game, that was a different dice class than a dice class that we use for some other exercises because we want particular classes to be used for particular reasons sometimes, and we're describing things in very specific ways. All right, so we've got this get balance that's just going to return the balance. We've got this adjust balance, which will say if this dot balance plus adjustment is less than the credit limit, then we can do this. If this dot balance plus equals adjustment, that's what we want to do. Otherwise, we say over the limit. So this would put us over that credit limit. And this is an artificial one because whatever your balance was, you could be already close to that credit limit of $2,000 here. So we might want to track something else here. So the balance plus the adjustment is less than the credit limit, then we're fine. We can add that to it. Otherwise, we're going to send them a message over the limit. All right, we've got a toString here. So this is the toString check. We're going to print out the card number and this dot card number for the owner, this owner, and has balance, this balance. And we're going to return all that in a string. So this is kind of like the toString that was done for the PA final, where we actually added items together like this and returned a string for the toString. So this was a toString where you're returning an explicit string value that you might want to print outside of your actual toString method. All right, then you've got your equals method. And these are the key methods that you need to understand how to write. This equals method is one that you will definitely need to write for the final exam. So if you do not understand how different equals methods work, you should go through the practice exams and then email me or post to Piazza if you have any questions. So here's an equals method. Check if all the values are equal for all cards. So what we're doing is we're comparing this card to the card over here. So what we want to do is set up a return value equals false as a default. Then we're going to say if this dot card number equals, and this is going to be a string comparison. Remember, it's dot equals for string comparisons. You can't just compare equal in the string comparison. So make sure you understand the difference between a string comparison of equal or equality and a int or double. So this dot owner number equal card dot owner number, and this dot balance equals card balance. This dot security pin equals card dot security pin. So that's how you would compare these items, this owner number and the card dot owner number, since that's the variable we're passing in here. And if all those are correct and equal, again, this card number dot equals card dot card number, then we're going to say we want to return true here. And we'll set the return value to true. Otherwise, it's going to return that false by default, and it's going to come back to us. So that's that class there. Then we've got this last item here, this credit card driver or CC driver. So this one here, if we compile all the other items here, go ahead and compile that. Oh, I've got an F in here somehow, then I just had it in there. Let's compile this. All right. Compile the owner, and then let's go to the driver. Now we can compile this driver and card.toString. Okay, so we don't want to do that. We need card.toString like that. All right. So we've got this card.toString. We can't pass it anything. We're just saying card because we're working with this object here called card, and we want to do a toString here. Then we run this. We're going to get the card number is 44444s for owner 1, which is owner 1, and has a balance of $0 since we just initialized this. Then we've got a just balance that we're trying to put on the card, and we're trying to add $1,000 to this zero balance, and that is fine. Then we're going to try and add another $1,000, and that is not fine. That's going to give us a problem here, and it's going to say over the limit in this particular transaction. Then we're going to print the card get balance, and we're going to go and get that 1,000. This doesn't matter that we have this in here, but it's expecting a particular item in here. So we're going to need to make sure we're passing it something that it expects, or that we're passing it something that's valid to be passed. So we're going to go get balance here on the card. Let's make sure we're looking at that and seeing that it's doing. We're going to pass for the owner number 12, and that would be the owner number. So if we did that, we would be getting $1,000 for this, for the owner number 1 here. We would get this card and we would get balance. It doesn't really matter what the owner number is, as you can see. Even if we're passing the wrong owner number, that's not going to affect the output of this because it doesn't really care about that. It's extraneous information. Even though we're passing the owner number in here, it's never being used because we're working with this card. So it really doesn't matter what you would be doing with this owner number. So make sure you have an understanding of what parameters are going in, if they're doing anything, and what they're doing too. So this one is an actual extraneous parameter. It really wouldn't do a whole lot. All right. Here I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording because I think that's all I wanted to cover for this.